Thanks for joining us. You're watching Notepad. I'm your host, Ibrahim Sani. The supply chain issue has been tremendously impacting businesses globally. Of course, we're trying to see how deep this goes. This is, of course, trying to also see how this impacts the global recovery in a post-pandemic world. There's a lot to unpack here. So we have the pleasure of having Siobhan, the CEO of AmCham, or the American Malaysia Chamber of Commerce, joining us. How are you, Siobhan?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me on today.
Let's do a quick recap into how things are progressing when it comes to trade between Malaysia and Malaysia and America. Pardon me, and we're trying to see how things are progressing, particularly in a post-pandemic world. Perhaps you can give us an overview of where things stand right now.
Well, I think with supply chains, we've gone through a really hard MCO and COVID period. But I think Malaysia's coming out of it quite well. They're certainly not out of the woods yet, but I think that the bouncing out of the MCOs is happening. We are moving up into full production, but we're not there yet. We still have issues that are impacting full production, and a lot of that has to do with mobility and talent. But we're hoping that as Malaysia's borders are opening slowly, that this will abate itself.
Actually, you guys have been hosting a lot of conversations and dialogue, more importantly, the Penang Dialogue that took place on October 21st last week. Could you go through with us some of the items that was discussed in that dialogue?
Certainly. The Penang Dialogue is a very important program that we run annually, and it brings together thought leaders as well as industry to look at some of the big issues that Malaysian manufacturing and services are addressing. And we certainly spoke about that at the Penang Dialogue. In their own ways, each of the speakers emphasized how much the world that we're re-entering. And the theme of the dialogue this year was about Malaysia's re-entering into a very rapidly changing world. And that, I think, was what came out from a lot of the discussions, that the world has changed, and it has changed quite tremendously. COVID, technology, the focus on climate change, and the human condition is front and center, along with the trade environment that is going through seismic chambers, trying to accommodate some of these factors. And I think a lot of meaningful discussions were had, and I think left a lot of thoughts that the participants had to chew on. But some of these areas, like, as I mentioned earlier, talent is going to be one of the biggest drivers of recovery. We have to make sure that the productivity of the Malaysian people, the ability to bring in the resources we need to enable businesses to grow, is going to be critical to get the supply chains running in the way that we want it to be running as smoothly as possible. So talent mobility is going to be absolutely critical in all of this. And that will be big discussions, not just in trade, but also on how Malaysia is opening the borders and how it's addressing the talent shortages and the gaps in the interim while we build up our own talent base as well.
Yeah, it's also important for us to keep track of some of the pains that can be improved on. Yes, of course, talent shortage and talent improvements is actually extremely crucial. Automation, of course, is a big deal. You're right, some of the major themes include climate change. COP26 is happening very soon. All these mega themes are impacting how things are coming back. Very recently, I just had an interview with the Asian Development Bank. They were talking about the mantra of building back better. I think this is an opportunity for us to actually improve on the manufacturing sector as well. Some of the key lessons perhaps you can share with us in terms of the manufacturing players in particular, at least in Malaysia. Do you get a glimpse of what they intend to do in terms of building back better? It's just going to be more of the same old, the way we did before the pandemic.
Well, I don't think anything is going to be the same old now that we're in this kind of post period and building back. I think everybody's having to adjust to that new realities. And, we've seen, as you saw, with talent, we have to pay more attention to how we're treating labor on a personal level as well as a systemic level. So we need to be really addressing labor issues. We need to be addressing how we incorporate climate change factors into the manufacturing process, and how do we put that into the ecosystem. A lot of the many MNCs that are based in Malaysia, that have found a really good home in Malaysia, are going to be under pressure to make sure that the ecosystem that supports them, that's the local SMEs, are also able to comply to those global standards, to the pressures of trade agreements, of new not so new, but more enforcement of existing rules. And so I think the robustness of our ecosystem is our strength today, and we need to be running faster to make sure that it's our strength tomorrow as well.
Siobhan, the Penang Dialogue is, of course, an annual program that the Chamber is doing or has done. Do you get a sense that this is a bit darker than normal, Siobhan, in terms of previous Penang Dialogue?
Not at all. In fact, I would say we all came away with some really good positive positions saying that Malaysia has this is the sweet spot. Malaysia has a great opportunity to capture a lot of the things that needs to be done. As I said, we're coming from a base of strength. We have a robust ecosystem. The SMEs that we have here cannot rest on their laurels. We need to get ahead of the competition and run faster. As I said, we need to make sure that we capture those opportunities while they're in our hands, so to speak. Competition is rife. Malaysia is not going to be just competing in the region. They're going to be competing with the entire globe because we are part of the global system. So our competition is not on our doorstep, it's around the world. And we need to be very cognizant of that.
There is also that notion that businesses might want to think about how they spend. Some businesses think that this is the time to spend a lot. Other businesses are thinking about holding back their cash to improve on their cash flow situation. Based on that conversation that you guys have seen over at Penang Dialogue last week, what's the mood like right now when it comes to spending cash or improving cash flow?
I think every company has to look at their own business model and look at how they're going to incorporate some of the imperatives, like in order to go build up better. So things like, are you going to automate? What are you going to automate? How much talent do you need? Where's that talent coming from? What are you going to invest in? Each company in each sector are going to have to make those decisions themselves. There are a lot of programs that the Malaysian government has put in place that I think SMEs can take advantage of, and hopefully that the MNCs that are here as well can take advantage and have some advantages put in some of their kind of incentive packages that are not necessarily just monetary, but how do we train our people better? How do we use that dollar that we have available wisely? But I think that's an age-old business discussion that every company is going to have. There are going to be issues that we all have to face, and each one is going to be different. There's no one patina for all.
All right, we're going to go for a short break. When we come back, we're going to discuss a little bit more with AmCham, or the American Malaysian Chamber of Commerce. Thanks for staying on with us. I have with me Siobhan, the CEO of AmCham, or the American Malaysia Chamber of Commerce. The global supply chain, of course, is under siege right now, particularly when we talk about the world's biggest economy, the United States. Things are either stalled on the seas, or trucks are not being able to deliver the goods and services. A lot of the fast-moving consumer goods are being affected. Of course, this is having a global or ripple effect around the globe. Malaysia is, of course, trading heavily with America. They are one of the top two or top three biggest trading partners. Siobhan, how do you foresee the kind of outlook that is in store for us when it comes to the near term, in the next few months? Is this global supply chain situation going to worsen over time?
I think the global supply chain is going through shifts and changes that were happening even before COVID. There are going to be improvements, there are going to be shifts, just to ensure that that supply is in the right place in order to get to the destinations. Is it going to worsen? I think production around Asia is slowly coming back. It's not just about Malaysia, it's around the globe, and also it's not just about manufacturing, it's about shipping, logistics, and multiple different factors. So I think I think there's a lot of work, there's a lot of stuff that's going to get done, but it's not going to be easy. I think it's going to take a little while. We will see the effects of supply chain issues for the next year or so, but hopefully getting better each month.
Of course, when we talk about Malaysia and our function in the global supply chain, where do you think our unique proposition stand? Do you think that we have that edge over our, I guess, competing neighbors right now in providing the best solution, the best manufacturing possibilities or value proposition to our trading partners?
Look, I think Malaysia stands in an extremely sweet spot right now. We have a really, really good offering to a lot of investors. But at the same time, I think Malaysia needs to look at some of the areas that it can improve on, and it has undertaken some of these already. The ambition to digitize a lot of its systems, a lot of its processes. I think this will help. It'll make things much more efficient. We will see hopefully a greater integration with ASEAN, and so that goods and services can, especially goods, can move easily. I go back to talent mobility. We need talent in here to start pushing that growth going forward. So I think immediately we will have a lot of work to do, but I think we are in a sweet spot. The time is now. We need to be acting and be seen to be acting. And I think with the onset of RCEP and the prospect of RCEP being finished by the end of the year, and after that CPTPP, Malaysia sits in a very, very good spot in order to take advantage. But it's not, there is an end to this in the sense that our competition is growing around us, and countries like Vietnam, Thailand, and even those in Europe and South America and other places are going to be running the competition for us.
Yeah, you touched about ASEAN, you touched about RCEP, you touched about CPTPP. These are the kind of items that I want to really talk about, while of course ASEAN is not a free trade agreement, but they do try to achieve some sort of collective together. But the other two, RCEP and of course CPTPP, it's I wouldn't say plagued or riddled with bureaucracy, but it is carrying a lot of that, I guess, baggage along with it. As an individual player, perhaps manufacturers here in Malaysia, do you think that they can navigate through this bureaucracy or work independently away from RCEP and CPTPP and try to achieve productivity and profitability even without these interstate agreements that are currently being in place?
I think Malaysia has a lot that it can be doing to increase productivity, and I think that's going to be the key for Malaysia, is to find a way to really ramp up productivity, and that that is an imperative across the board. However, I think they should not dismiss the opportunities that these agreements, whether they're inter-ASEAN or RCEP or CPTPP, that will offer businesses access to markets and also the ability to work in partnerships with companies at global standards. So I think it's there is a trend in, I think, after post-COVID to be a lot more inward looking. But I think this is where we need to be outward looking and looking at our partners and how do we leverage the ecosystem that will advantage Malaysia, which, as you know, is a traditionally trading nation. So we need trading partners.
All right. Okay, Siobhan, one more break before we conclude the conversation right now. We'll go for one short break before we conclude the conversation with the AmCham, American Malaysia Chamber of Commerce. Thanks for staying on with us. I have with me on the line Siobhan Das. She's the CEO of the American Malaysia Chamber of Commerce. With the mood right now picking up because of the post-pandemic situation globally as well as in Malaysia, do you feel that the energy is there, the vigor is there in terms of businesses both locally and in the US in trying to reinvigorate their trading capability, trading capacity as well? How do you think American businesses and Malaysian businesses can further improve on this right now?
I think the appetite for trade and appetite for business is as high as it can be. I certainly know that the US companies are very interested in ramping up production in Malaysia and even putting new sectors in here. And we're seeing that with the entry of the medical technology companies like Dexcom, who has just landed in Malaysia. And of course, I think the British company also, Smith and Nephew, that's also here. So we're seeing new sectors really kind of deepening its presence, and I think that's really, really good. But in order for these new sectors to come in, again, I go back to the fact that we need things like the borders to open. We need to be able to bring, immigration to understand that, and and that movement of people is equally important to get some of these sectors growing. We need to bring the expertise in, get these lines up and running, and that by up and running, I also mean that they're then productive. They can be training Malaysian people in the space, and that cycle begins again. And I think we've had 18 months of essentially closed borders, and I think we need to start looking at how businesses can grow in a safe manner. I mean, we can't dismiss the health concerns, but I think if we look at a managed way of dealing with the health in an endemics way, then the businesses will grow from that. So I do think we are in the right place. We have to move faster. As I said, competition is heating up because all the countries are also opening up in different ways.
Could you maybe share with us the kind of engagement that you guys have with the Malaysian government, between AmCham, with say MITI or Health Ministry? What's the conversation like there?
Well, we have been very active in making sure that we're engaged with as many of the ministries as our members need us to be. MITI, of course, has been an excellent partner in making sure that they're hearing what the needs are from our member companies. MIDA as well, and the investment authorities as well. So I think our engagement has been quite good. We'd like to maintain that going forward. This is not the time to be sitting back and being quiet. We need to keep engaged, and it's only through that partnership of being able to explain what is going on in the business world that the governments have an understanding of what they need to look at and prioritize where they can help businesses grow. So it's only through engagement, and we really are looking forward to continuing that process and working with not just a bilateral between the Malaysian government and the US businesses, but also we certainly interact with our other chambers, our other local chambers here, as well as the foreign chambers, and we want to keep that because it's all businesses. It's not just US businesses, because we all grow together. And especially with the SMEs, I cannot stress the importance of the ecosystem rising to the challenges of a climate, of labor, and learning from the best practices established by not just the Americans, but the Europeans and other companies, other countries around the globe, because those are the companies that they're interacting with. Those are the suppliers, their customers. And in today's world of traceability, what Malaysian SMEs are doing and what Malaysian companies or Malaysian-based companies are doing will reflect on the country.
Siobhan, you were talking about the appetite couldn't be higher than it is right now. Maybe you can share with us some of their concerns or worries moving ahead, maybe the top two or top three challenges that they feel that they need to overcome in the next coming few months.
Well, I've said it a few times now, but I say talent mobility is going to be absolutely critical. I think looking at ways that we could increase productivity in the Malaysian talent pool, and the building up of that talent pool will be crucial. I think we need to make sure that beyond the talent, that customs and tariffs and all those areas are being looked at as well. But I think there seems to be good work being done on that. But it's a question of being aligned with the rest of ASEAN. How do we increase that? How do we increase the trade amongst there? But I also think looking at services, we always talk about trade in goods, but we need to really be focusing on trade and services as well. And how does that, how we can increase, I mean, services is the fastest growing sector. We need to be looking at how Malaysia can be a service hub for many, many companies, and making sure that our offering there in services with digitization, the digital options, the e-commerce, the look at data flows, and I think this is a constant conversation we're having right now. How do we position Malaysia to be a strong place?
Now, I think because of services, we're in a strange place. We're not low cost based like Indonesia, like India, or even China, Vietnam. We're not really that high-tech the way we see things happening in South Korea, Taiwan, or Singapore. We're neither here nor there. That's the problem that I see with the services sector. Do you feel that this is a quagmire that is being shared by many, or am I just alone in this view?
I think, to me, all of what you said there means you've given us goals to aim for. We need to get to that. We need to up our game, and in the spirit of Malaysia Boleh, we can. We have very talented Malaysians, and we have very talented partners who want to see Malaysia succeed. So I think the work ahead of us is to join hands and do this together. And but there are some difficult conversations to be had, and we can't be afraid of having them. But remember that as a small nation with 32 million people, we need to also understand that partnerships are critical to our success, because we do not have a strong, large domestic market. And so therefore, nationalistic policies will give you a very small market. What we need to have is be part of that Asian market and a part of that global market.
Final question to you is this. Budget is going to be presented in just a few days. Do you have any wish lists that you would probably want to see inside the budget?
Anything that supports the discussion that we had right now. How do we get Malaysian SMEs and ecosystem addressing some of the key issues that they need to address in order to work to a global standard? So I would say really focusing on how the ecosystem can be more robust.
Fantastic. That was Siobhan Das, the CEO of the American Malaysia Chamber of Commerce, or AmCham. If you've missed any part of this interview, just head on to astroawani.com, look for Notepad over there. Until then, thanks very much for watching, and goodbye.